Well, Jim, this next question was sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Joshua Powers. Hi, Jim and Mr. Breakfast Hater Brian. Hi, Josh. I've been watching 1997 to early 1999 WWF on the network, and Kevin Kelly is and was a far superior announcer. Why was Kevin Kelly passed over? Was it because of a certain individual named VR? Or was it the half man, half beaver known as Kevin Dunn?
You are correct, sir.
Beaver. I find myself getting sucked into Sunday night Heat episodes on the network because of Kevin, and I end up falling asleep because of Michael Cole. So why was Kevin Kelly passed over in favor of Michael Cole, Jim?
Bucky Beaver. Basically, here's what it was. Kevin was a guy who had done wrestling announcing in Florida and was a wrestling fan and did a very good job announcing wrestling matches. He was a little portly at the time. Aren't we all sometimes? And Kevin Dunn liked Michael Cole because Michael Cole had never been a wrestling fan, had never done any wrestling, but he had been a news correspondent and done real TV news, and was what Kevin Dunn thought was more cosmetically pleasing on camera for an announcer. Which, of course, and I'm not knocking Michael Cole when I say this. And Michael, it's not his fault that they brought him in and made him a wrestling announcer when he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And since then, as he's learned what the fuck he was doing as far as being a WWF announcer, and now all the WWF announcers sound like Michael Cole. But Kevin Dunn, and so went Kevin Dunn's opinion at the studio, so went everybody else's opinion. He thought that Michael Cole should be an announcer. He wasn't a fan of Kevin's because Kevin knew too much about wrestling, called wrestling like wrestling, and didn't look like the anchorman announcer type that Kevin Dunn felt that Michael Cole looked like. That is the entire legitimate reason. And, yes, you could say Kevin could have lost some weight, which I think he did at one point. It didn't matter because they didn't change anything or do anything else for him any better. But what the fuck? Picking announcers because of the way they look and then training them to be announcers is just the same as picking wrestlers because they look at and training them to be wrestlers, which is also what they were doing at the time. It's fucking stupid. And if you don't go for cosmetically pleasing people as wrestling announcers, then you have just eliminated every goddamn great wrestling announcer in the history of wrestling. Except maybe Lord Blears.
Yeah, and by the way, Michael Cole isn't exactly GQ over there.
Well, no, but you're taking Kevin Dunn's assertion of what a good-looking male individual looks like. So there's going to be some fucking leeway there anyway with common sense. But that's the whole thing. Michael Cole had the rep because Kevin was high on him as a legitimate TV guy, and Kevin Kelly was a guy who announced independent wrestling in Florida. And Kevin's portly and Michael Cole has a mustache. I don't fucking know.
And Kevin's good at calling wrestling and Michael Cole isn't.
Yeah, I'm not explaining it. I'm just relaying it. That's the story.
And then later on, you got him in the Ring of Honor, correct?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because that was the thing is we originally wanted Kevin Kelly, and I've told this story, and Adam Pearce because we wanted a Mike Goldberg, Joe Rogan type of booth where you have a lead announcer that knows a lot about the sport, but he's an announcer. And then you have a color analyst that's an ex-jock, but not with a gimmick, not like a heel commentator or not a current wrestler or someone with a gimmick. But Adam at the time would have been presented as the retired Ring of Honor wrestler who is lending his color analysis. And he would have taken the kind of the Joe Rogan mold, even though Rogan wasn't a fucking retired fighter. He kind of had that jock vibe. And he knew everything because he's a fucking MMA nerd. Obviously, we didn't get Adam Pearce. We told that story before because of Ross the Merchandise Weasel and all the fucking petty outlaw mud show bullshit Ring of Honor politics with the fucking crew that they had in there at one time, which included the fucking Shane Hagedorn and the rest of those goofballs. But no, Kevin Kelly was the first and only choice as the lead announcer because he was the only guy that we felt had enough experience at calling wrestling that could call the new style of wrestling and get into it as the Ring of Honor, the hard-hitting, athletic, MMA, hybrid, crossbreed type of style, everything serious, no bullshit. And also he had a name and recognition from national television, but he was better. It was a better fit for him to call this kind of wrestling. So, yeah, he was the only person I tried to get him. Yeah, damn it. When Ring of Honor had that show on HDNet, when HDNet was available in fucking 3 state mental institutions in the country, I guess at that point, nobody could. I had to pay $10 a month extra just to get the one fucking station here in Louisville on my cable. But they were, it was television. And this time I was trying to help Kerry Silken, and they had gotten that guy, Mike Hogwood, who was a regional sports announcer in he had to be in his early 60s. I think he's since passed away.
He has.
Okay. He wasn't, a spring chicken, and he had never done wrestling and never really watched wrestling, but he did like basketball and different sports. He was from North Carolina. Imagine that. The only guy in the world from North Carolina that hadn't watched fucking wrestling. And they paired him with Dave Prazak from Chicago to try, because he had wrestling knowledge, but the problem there, and I like Dave, and I never had any issues with Dave. I told them to their face one time, I said, Mike Hogwood and Dave Prazak, it looks like a friendly grandfather and his delinquent fucking grandson that's out of the home for a day to fucking go on a field trip. Dave was not a cosmetically pleasing announcer, and he looked like a gimmick because he was a wrestling personality. And Mike Hogwood was completely lost and didn't even know what the holds were called, and didn't know how to even approach calling wrestling. And old Liver Lip Lagana was the one at that time that was having to go out and produce them. They did the voiceovers out at, where was HDNet's headquarters? Out west. Was it Phoenix? Was it Denver? Denver's where it was. Because that's where JR had to go when they do the New Japan voiceovers. But anyway, so Lagana would have to go out there and have to try to produce Mike Hogwood. And it was like pulling teeth. And so that's when Kerry had asked me to come up, I brought Kevin to one of the tapings in Philadelphia to speak, because at that time they weren't even doing commentary live. I saw Mike Hogwood the whole time I was doing the fucking show. I saw him there about 2 or 3 times. They would do the commentary as voiceover. They didn't even have an audio set up to do the commentary live. That's why the HDNet Ring of Honor show was so rotten. Not because they had bad matches. They had great matches because the audio was horrible. Because the announcers weren't there. They were doing it in post, which meant that the insane crowd reaction in the ECW arena was muted. It was like watching the show through a window. And because they were doing 8 or 10 weeks of television over 2 days taping time, they would just tape matches and they'd put them together. There was no flow and story. They were sending a big-ass truck, a bigger truck than we even needed, but only sending half a crew because they weren't doing live audio. And the director had never had any experience doing wrestling. He just did the sports that HDNet fucking contracted with. And one time, I remember I left the truck to go back in the arena and check something in the locker room and came back out. And the director and technical director, both people that HDNet sent, we had no say over the crew, technical crew. They'd gotten in an argument, and the director got mad, left, went back to the hotel, left the technical director to do the. Well, what difference is it? All he's doing is switching a fucking camera for a fucking, goddamn 4 hours that night. That's all. You know, which counts if you figure a camera switch for goddamn every 10 seconds or so, do that math on how many you'll do in 4. But no, we didn't need a director. It was a zoo. And I'd brought Kevin Kelly there one time to speak to, God damn it. Now he's going to get mad at me. The kid, I say kid, he was probably 30 at the time, but a young man that was an executive at HDNet that had been a wrestling fan, that is one that sold him on Ring of Honor and New Japan. Adam Swift. That's what I said. Adam Swift or Alan. No, it was Adam Swift was his name. Nice young man. And Guy Mesger, who was an ex-MMA fighter, was there representing HDNet. Because he was the head of fight programming. And I went over in the corner with him and I said, look, Kevin Kelly has called some of the biggest names in the business on national and international television and pay-per-view. He's got experience with live broadcasting, live to tape. He's also got experience with lower budget productions. He knows how to get guys over. I said, I'm not saying that Mike Hogwood is a horrible person, but none of us standing here will live long enough to see him become a good wrestling announcer. And they're like, well, we don't want it to be where it's only for the wrestling fans. I said, no, it will be for people that speak English. That's what it'll be. That's what I found out, that apparently Mike Hogwood was friends with somebody back at the HDNet headquarters, and they weren't going to switch that announcer no matter what. And the only reason that they let Prazak be involved was because there was somebody that knew something about wrestling, because Hogwood knew absolutely nothing, but Hogwood was going to be on that program. So that's why I knew that we were cooked there. There was no reach to the show. Nobody knew it was there except the people that were already searching out Ring of Honor. And the program was unlistenable. It was just, I would watch it with the sound down because it hurt my heart so bad to listen to a television program that I had anything to do with that announcing that bad. But then, thankfully, right as the Sinclair talks got started, that's when HDNet decided they weren't going to continue with the program because they were spending money on the production and weren't getting a return on it because nobody was watching their station to begin with. It wasn't Access TV 10 and 11 years ago. It was fucking HDNet and nobody knew it was around. So they canceled the program, and the last Ring of Honor on HDNet aired in, I believe, April. And by September, we were on the air in with Sinclair. Now, there was a period of time there where if Sinclair hadn't gone for everything, we'd ended up with no TV. But no TV, honestly, was pretty much just about equal to what Ring of Honor had on HDNet. So anyway, I tried to get him there, Kevin, because it would have added to the program so much, but it wouldn't have fixed the fact that nobody was able to see it. So then when Kevin debuted on the Ring of Honor program with Sinclair, it gave it an even fresher look. But there was no other announcers that's the problem, is all of the veteran announcers, whether it be anybody from Kevin Kelly to Tony Schiavone to Jim Ross, everybody that did wrestling in the territories, that worked with promoters and bookers that understood how to do this shit and also had experience at a variety of budget levels, such as no budget at all or WWF, they're all my age or older. And all of the new wrestling announcers either come from the Michael Cole school of fake voiced over the top WWF announcing, or the excrement style of we're doing announcing over VHS tapes in our mom's basement because that's the way that we've done our local wrestling federation. And there's practically nobody in, but that's why it's so good to see Ian Riccaboni, by the way.